Okay, my name is Jennifer. I am the Help Desk Lead for the RMS Support Center, and I will be presenting our training for today. I just remind you to make sure to hold your questions until the end of the section when we will open it up for more questions at that point. However, if you do have questions and you want to post it in the chat, you can do that at any time. It will be monitored. So I'm going to go ahead and briefly get started. So this is going to be for the beginner training. This is not going to include any guidance on the business policies, practices, or regulations that are required for the districts or for the contracts. If you have any of those questions, contact someone in your district to find out what those policies and guidances are. We're just going to tell you how RMS can be used, not necessarily how your district is going to use them. So if you have any of the questions regarding how your district specifically does it, if it's going to go this way or this way, you will need to contact your district and find out. All right, so here are our general topics. If we get time, we'll be able to go through all of these. The first thing that we're going to go over is the general navigation. After we talk about the administration tab, we're going to go over to the submittals tab. Then we're going to talk about the quality control and quality assurance tab. And then we'll talk about the progress payments if time allows. For navigation, this is the basic learning objectives that we're going to try and do. We're going to tell you about the launcher. We're going to tell you about the map, how to select your district, what the views look like, your contracts, contract menu, using data grids, and offline mode, signing, and all that kind of stuff. Now, one of the things that you will notice, we'll go through a couple of slides, and then I'm going to do a live demonstration of those slides. So I'm going to really quickly go through these slides. There's going to be a lot of detail on the slides. They will be posted on SharePoint for you to view at a later time if you want to look into the details to see what some of those are saying. But I'm just going to go over a brief overview to make sure we can get through this in the time that we've got. So basically the launcher itself, RMS is composed of two parts, the launcher and the client. The first thing that you should always be going into is the launcher, because the launcher is going to be what goes and checks for any updates. We periodically go through and release new features, new updates, make any changes, and we'll do that usually on a monthly basis, twice a month, depending on what the release schedule happens to be. So you're going to want to make sure that you open up your launcher every week to make sure your system is up to date with the newest, latest, and greatest. Now, one of the things that you will know about the launcher is sometimes there are issues. If this is the first time you have ever installed your RMS on your computer, you want to make sure that you install it from the app portal, as the app portal will automatically install all of the correct permissions on your computer. In the link, when you get the PowerPoint, you'll see that there are two links here for helpful things to help you with your having issues with the launcher. So if you have a problem, you want to do it the first time, you don't know how to get it from the app portal, this link right here will take you to a video which will walk you through the process of getting it from the app portal. If you're having problems and you need to update your launcher because you haven't been in RMS for over a month, maybe 2 months or 3 months, then you can come to this video and watch that to find out to find out how to update your launcher. Now, there are some common errors that come with the RMS launcher, and the biggest one is you get the error message, disconnected. Your computer could not connect to the following resources. And then, of course, it'll give you some kind of number. Usually, there are two causes for this one. Your shortcut is pointing to the wrong location, in which case you need to update your shortcut to point to the right one. Here is a YouTube video which will walk you through the steps of how to correct that if that is your problem, or even how to check it. The other possible one is because you haven't been opening it in a week. And if that's the case, you need to update. Go take a look at this YouTube video here, and it will show you how to do that one. And finally, another one that I've seen more and more of, every time Windows updates, makes change, it has issues with multiple monitors. So if you have external monitors and you're changing external monitors or adding a new one, taking it away, just changing some of that stuff, sometimes it doesn't know how to open up the windows. So what happens is it opened up in a quote unquote minimized state. That is actually really easy to fix. And in order to fix it, you can just go to this YouTube video to take a look. It's really quick, and I'll kind of show you that when I get to the live demonstration on how to fix that. But mine's not going to show exactly what you will see if you have this error message. Okay, so the login screen. First thing that you're going to see after you run the launcher is the login screen. Here, there's a bunch of information that you're going to want to pay attention to. The biggest thing is this one down here, the scheduled maintenance. So CEIT regularly does scheduled maintenance on various different systems. When they do, RMS may or may not be part of that scheduled maintenance. So you will need to make sure that if you plan on working on a weekend, you come in here and you check these important notices down at the bottom to see if that's going to be a weekend for scheduled maintenance. If it is, just know that you may or may not be able to use RMS. You might be able to get into it. It might be super slow, or you may not be able to get into it all. So that's something to take in mind. Now, one place to come over and check in order to see if you're running the most recent update is over here underneath the server connections button. It'll tell you processing site and the software version. This software version is going to be the one that's going to tell you everything. This number right here, 0328, right now that is our current release. However, if you come in and you see a number that does not match with what's in our release notes, then you're out to date and you need to update your launcher. Also, this button right here, server connections, this will allow you to test if you think that you're up to date and it's not working properly, but you still can't get in. I would check these server connections just to see how it's running. Anytime you need support, there's always help. So this will take you to the website. This will take you to the Jira website. Now, when you click on this button, if your default browser is Internet Explorer, be aware you will not be able to open up Jira correctly. You'll have to copy the link from Internet Explorer into either Chrome, Firefox, or what's the other one? Edge. Those three work with Jira, no problem, but the Internet Explorer does not. So just make sure that when you are clicking on this button, if Internet Explorer is your default browser, you're going to have to copy and paste from the address bar into Chrome, Firefox, or Edge. However, the RMS website will work on any browser, so you can click on that. It'll take you straight to that, and there's a bunch of different things that can help you out on there. This will also take you to our Jira support site as well. One other thing to note, that if you have your smart card inside and you do not see your name showing up in here, just click on this refresh smart card and it will show up with your name. I'm sorry, is there a question?
Yeah, we want to slow you down to about 25 miles per hour.
I do apologize. Okay. If at any point in time I am going too fast, please let me know. Mostly because we have lots to get through and I'm going to try and get it all in one shot. All right. So let me go on. After you log in, the first screen that you're going to see is this map view that's showing up over here. This is going to be a list of all the districts. If this is not the screen that you are seeing, then you will need to contact your district admin to make sure your staff record was set up correctly in the district and it's linked to your CAC login as such. What you will notice is that off to the right-hand side, there is some information over here. If you know that your division, your contract is in one of these divisions that are showing up over here, you can click on that, and underneath it will show you all of the districts that are part of that division. That's another way for you to be able to enter into your district. So if you are in, say, Los Angeles district and you need to go in to see a contract, you will come over to Los Angeles, double click on that to get into Los Angeles. If you don't know where Los Angeles is, or if you're over here in this part of the map and it's really kind of hard to see and you know what division you're in, you can click on the division and select it over here. If you've already been in RMS before and you want to access a district you've gone into before, those will show up here in the recently used sections. Another thing to note is for districts that are outside of the US, they will show up either on this side of the right or on the bottom left, depending on which district you're trying to get into. Okay, so kind of already talked about this. Common login errors. You're trying to get into the district and it says login to LA failed. So if you ever see this error again, you'll need to contact your district administrator to make sure that your staff record is set up correctly and it is linked to your CAC. If they have confirmed that that is the case, you'll contact the help desk support and we will be able to assist you with getting you into the district at that point. But please note the help desk does not have the ability to add, edit, or change the staff that are allowed to go into a district. All right, navigation buttons. Once you open up a contract, all of the navigation buttons will pretty much look like this. These three, back, refresh, and help, are always going to be there, no matter where you are at. However, the government mode, the contract selection, and the contract menu will only show up depending on where you are. So government mode home will show up as soon as you enter into a contract. Contract selection, sorry. Government mode home will show up as soon as you enter into the district. Contract selection will show up as soon as you enter into a contract, and contract menu will show up as soon as you go into any of the modules within that contract. Now, one thing to note, RMS does not have a save feature. What we use instead is the back button. So if you make any changes to something and you want to make sure it's updated on all systems, you need to click on this back button in order to update it. The other thing to note is the refresh button. The refresh button lets you know when there has been changes to data in your contract that you are currently working on, and you need to refresh your view to make sure you see this. Now, this is important if you have more than one person in the same module. With the exception of the progress payments, all other modules will not tell you when there is someone else in that module at that time. So if you are working in a module and you see the refresh button start to circle, that means there are changes that have been updated and you need to grab those before you do anything else. So if you see the circle button going, go ahead, click on it just to make sure everything is up. And then when you click on the back button, that's not going to overwrite other people's information. Now, another thing to note when you're entering into a contract, at the top left, you will have the title of your contract. Then you will also have the contract ID in these square brackets right here, and then the contract number. If your contract has a delivery order number, that will also show up over here as well. Now, if you ever have to put in a support ticket, we will always ask you for the contract ID because this will tell us which district you're in as well as which contract you're in. So please be prepared. If you are going to put in a submit ticket, we will ask you for this information. However, if you don't have it, as long as you have the contract number and the district, we will be able to assist you at that point. All right. Once you have logged into the district, this is the basic view that you're going to see. And in this particular case, this is for our test district, and there's a whole lot more in here than what's showing, but right now we're only showing you this one at the point. So something to keep in mind is there are two views when you come into the district. The first one is to display the contracts, and the second one is to display projects. What you will notice is this view right here is the display contracts, and you have add, edit, archive, contract delivery, contract ID, and all of these things. If you change it from display contracts to display projects, you'll come over here, you'll lose the add button, you'll lose the archive button, and the columns here will change. So that's something to keep in mind. Pay attention. If this view doesn't look the way you think it should, take a look at the bottom right and see what's going on. Now, that's a common error that I was just talking about. And basically, we've had users who will sit there and call in and be like, I can't add a contract when they need to add the contract. If you have permissions to add a contract, then the first thing you're going to want to look is the bottom right to see if you are displaying projects or displaying contracts. All right, so a basic overview of all of the lovely little buttons and options that you have in here. So from the display contracts inside the district, the first thing that you will notice is there are some tabs that are up here up at the top. These are the district menu items, and you can click on each one of these if you have permissions in order to get into them. We're actually not going to touch on any of the district tabs at this point in time, as that is a more advanced feature and will be held in later trainings. The next thing for noting is over here on the right-hand side, we have some sort options as well as office options. So for the sort options, you have the ability to look at all of the contracts, only future contracts, or other options, depending on the status or stage of the contract that you're looking for. You also have the ability to change which office you're looking at. So you can show only your office, including sub-offices, or you can show the whole district, depending on which view is best for you. Another thing that you've got is the add, edit, and archive. The edit button is to be used when you want to actually enter into a contract. The add button is if you have permissions and you are adding a new contract, you will use that. And the archive is the same. If you're going to archive a contract, you must have the correct permissions in order to do so. And follow your district's policy before doing either one of those actions. Another thing that you can do, because this is a data grid, you can also do a search in this search box right here. It'll make your life much easier. If you're trying to find a specific contract, you just start typing in part of the either the contract ID, the contract name, the title, any of those options, and then you'll be able to narrow down this list that shows up in here. Or if you want this list of all of the contracts, you can always click on the export button as well. All right, now for the middle tile, this is for your favorites. It only allows for 4 contracts to show up in your favorites, and to add those, you will go into the contract itself, and in the upper right-hand corner underneath the help button, there is another button that says mark as favorites. That's the button that you're going to click in order to get it to show up on this favorite screen right here. And when you want to remove it, you just go back into the contract and you click it again. All right. Now, when you have a data grid, which is a list of anything that you can open up or look at, and you can export it or search it, these areas right here, we have a couple of different ways that you can change the view to make it easier for you to look at the districts. And again, I will show this here in a little bit because it'll make more sense if it's displayed while I'm actually doing it. But basically, if you want to group by a certain column, all you have to do is take the column header and drag it over to this line gray bar that's up here up at the top, and it will change the view so that way you can see all of the stuff based off of, in this case, it happens to be report menu. Another thing that we have made available to make it easier to look for things is the filter option. So what you'll see under all column headings in any kind of data grid is a funnel. And when you click on that funnel, it will bring up some values. Now, depending on if it's a text field, a date field, or a number field, will depend on the information it shows here. The only information that will show up in this box right here is going to be the information that is currently in that column. If something is not in that column, it's not going to show up in here. Excuse me. Now, if you're doing, if you're doing something where you want a specific number of days, you can use is greater than or is equal to find, okay, I want to know which of these is due in like 5 days. Then you can just sit there and do is greater than 5 days if that column is going to have that information. Okay. The search box. A little bit more detail about the search box. The search box is a wonderful tool. I highly recommend it if you are going to go through with a list of more than like 4 or 5 reports or contracts or whatever the list happens to actually be. So that way it'll make it easier and faster for you to find whatever it is that you're looking for. Now, one thing to note about the search box, it does not work on a date field. So keep that in mind. If you try to search for a specific date, it's not going to show up. It only works on text fields. All right. And of course, the last thing, which I've kind of already hit on, is the export button. You have 2 options when you export. You can export it to an Excel document or you can export it to a report. And this is so that you can save it on your computer for looking at for different options. Okay. I seem to be missing the sorting tile. That's okay. I'm just going to go ahead and give you the demo right now. So let me start from the beginning. I am going to show my desktop. Okay, you should see my desktop and all of the stuff that's on it. Sorry, it's a little, okay. Apparently my settings didn't save. I'm sorry about that. So my RMS is actually on another computer. Excuse me, another screen. So let me try and bring it up so that way you can see it on this screen. Hang on just a second. Dang it. All right, let me drag this over. All right, so after the launcher runs, the first thing that you're going to see is this warning right here. Basically, that's just stating you're getting onto a government computer and there are only certain things that are allowed, and you must agree to this before you can get into RMS. So click on yes. If you click on no, you won't be able to log in. So go ahead and click on yes. And then as you can see, this will pop up here. Now it's trying to read the smart card. And there it goes. My name shows up. So now I'm going to go ahead and click on login. The next thing that will pop up is this select certificate. Something important to note about this one. If the certificate that shows up here does not say authentication with your name on it, then it is not the right one. You'll need to come down to more choices and pick the one that says authentication with your name on it. See here, there's one that says card authentication. Do not use this one. It will not work to let you into RMS. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And then it should ask me for my PIN. Going to take it a few minutes to go ahead and get into the map view. Hopefully it won't take too terribly long, but when sharing your screen, sometimes it's taking a little bit longer. Okay. So we've gotten to the map view, and as you can see, mine looks pretty similar to the one that was on the slide, just a little bit different. You can see all of my recently used, and I already have the North Atlantic Vision showing down here at the bottom. So mine looks slightly different because I have access to testing. I have access to some other districts. So when you go into your district, you're going to find your district either on the map, either through the divisions or through the recently used. And then you'll go ahead and single click on it in order to get into that district. So because this is a testing contract, I'm not going to go into any district on this map. I'm actually going to go into our testing district. So I'm not going to be able to show you the information on maximizing your screen if your window is showing up in a minimized state, because my taskbar is only on my other screen and I can't get it onto this screen. So I do apologize about that. But use the YouTube video link. It will walk you through and it will show you exactly what it looks like and exactly how to fix it.
Yeah, so Jennifer, just so you know, right now we're experiencing abnormal slowness on both WPC and CPC. We've let CEIT know and they're looking into it, but even the servers themselves are really slow. So it may be a little slow. Like you got in right now, we're seeing like periods where it's a little fast, but it's also sometimes where you sit there and wait a little bit, just FYI.
Thank you. Okay, so for our testing districts, they've been updating it and making it spiffier. Unfortunately, by updating and making it spiffier, we have to have little hiccups. So I will do the best that I can with what I've got. And if not, we do have some videos that I can play instead if this becomes too slow. So the first thing that I want to go over with you is, as you can see, my tiles, my navigation buttons are up at the top. I do see government mode home. If I were to click on this, I would send myself back to the map. Also, I can click on the back button to go back to the map. Something that I forgot about, and I will go back to that later because I don't want to lose this view, is how to get back to the login screen if you are already logged in. And I'll discuss that in just a minute. But first, we're going to go over the things that I talked about before. The first one that we're going to talk about is the sorting that you can do with these buttons right here. So if I click on this, say I only want to see awarded contracts for construction not complete. I'm going to click on this. And what you will notice is it's going to think about it. And this title, which is hiding behind my RMS icon, is going to update from all contracts to awarded contracts, construction not complete, if it'll let me do it. Nope. Okay. Let me see if I can pull up the video. In RMS, there are multiple areas that allow grouping and filtering of lists to make it easier to read. Any view where you see a table or a list, otherwise known as a data grid, can be grouped or filtered. In this example, we are looking at the Modifications module under the Finances tab. So to group any data grid view, drag the column header to the gray row above it. As you see, the view changes to show the options for the column that you chose to group by. In this case, we group by the completed in RMS. So to see all the modifications that have been completed in RMS, click on the row Yes to expand it. To remove the grouping, simply click on the title that you've dragged up there and then click on the X button that shows up. The next thing that we can do is filter. You will notice that each of the column headers has what looks like a little funnel on each of the right sides of them. If you wish to filter out certain modifications, so you only want to see a modification that's been completed in RMS, you can click on this filter icon and it will show you all the possible options for which you can filter inside RMS. In which case we're going to choose Yes, and then we're going to click on the X button to remove it from the view. What this will do is it will reduce what is displayed in the data grid to only the options that you chose in the filtering. To remove those filters, again, click on the filter, uncheck the Select All box, or check Select All to show everything. Usually you just don't want anything on there. Click the X button and everything will resume to the normal view. Data grids will allow you to sort the view to change the way the data is displayed. To sort the contract data, simply click on the column header once for descending, twice for ascending,
or a third time to remove the sort entirely.
The next thing to note is when you're inside the contract for marking as a favorite, this is where you can mark as favorites. And this is what it will look like as soon as you get into the contract. You will see again the title, okay. So this view is actually not 100% correct. This view is actually for the district view, not the contract. You should see the contract ID and the contract number showing up in there. So this screenshot was not correct. And I can show you that when we actually get back into RMS. Let me see here. One thing that you will notice is one of the first things that you'll see change when you go in are these three buttons right here, or boxes, I should say. These are the action item dashboards. So this will let you know if you have action items turned on for the contract, and if you have them assigned to someone, they will show up here as a warning to let you know when something is due and when it, what's due, who it's due by, that kind of stuff. There are three colors that are associated with the action items: green, red, and orange. For green, that means you don't have anything coming up or you don't have any action items set up on the contract. For orange colors, that means there is a medium outstanding action item that is getting ready to come up due and it needs to be taken care of quickly. If there's red, then that means both high and possibly medium action items are overdue and need to be taken care of in order to be able to do that. If you want to see the list of what is in there, you just click on one of the boxes and it will show you what it looks like. Already talked about that. So this is what, oh, I don't have it on here. Okay, let me see if I can pull it up in RMS. Knock on wood and hope it actually works. So let me go ahead and go into my Frankenstein contract. Oh, looky there. It looks like it's going to work. I really hope so. Let me see if I have 22. I think it might be on 23. All right, so this is what it looks like when you enter into a contract. As you can see, I pulled this off of my favorites and I have a yellow star marked as favorites because this one is my favorites. If I click on it, the star is going to go away and it's no longer going to show up in my favorites option in the district. So as you can see here, there's a title of our contract. Here's our contract ID. Here's our contract number and our delivery order number. Here are our action items. I have many action items that are assigned to me. So I want to see what those action items are. I'm going to go ahead and click on this guy and let it come up. This is the view that you're going to end up seeing. Now, one of the things that you will note is the information that's provided in here is not necessarily very detailed. So you'll probably want to open up the action items report in the contract reports. And we'll talk about that in a little bit later. Now, let's say I decide that I don't want to look at just my action items. I want to see the contractor action items. So I'm going to come over to the contractor action items. All of these blue boxes that are right here are filter boxes. And when you click on them, it will filter the view to show you what is associated with that particular item. So in this case, this is all the contractor action items. Let's say I only want to look at the ones that are medium. So they need to go in and they need to answer these letters. If it wanted to do the contract action items, that can be done by clicking on this one, and this is what you will see here. Okay, so then if you want to turn the action items on or off, you actually have to go into the action items module. And to do that, if you were on this screen, you're going to click on the back button and then make sure you're on administration, and then you're going to look for action item control. Go ahead and single click on that to open it up. And once you get in here, this will show you all of the possible action items. Again, we have some filter options up at the top. If I only want to see what's available for the contractor, I click here. If I only want to see what's available for the, oh, sorry, this was the government. This is the contractor. And then for both, we look at this one over here for all government or contractor. The first column on the left will tell you who it is going to be associated with. The second one is which item type it happens to be. The third one is the title and the level of the alert. This box right here is going to tell you whether or not something has been enabled. And then this one will tell you who is associated with it. Now, this is also a data grid, so if I wanted to, I could go ahead and sort this by the parties, and as you'll see, there are a couple of people on here, one with no person. So these are all of the ones that have nobody assigned to it, and then these are the ones that are assigned to Timothy, Stephen, Joelle, and myself. Now, I don't want that in there, so I'm going to go ahead and close that back out. Now, let's say I want to find a specific contract, a specific action item that I want to look for. I'm going to come over here to the search bar and I'm going to look for feature because I want my features to show up. So feature initial meeting due. I want to know when these are due. So I'm going to check this little box over here. And I know that who gets this is supposed to be myself. So I need to assign this to myself. So after selecting this action item, I will come down to the bottom. And I will see that there is a blue lookup field that says not assigned. So I'm going to click on that to bring up the lookup field for all of the users that are in my district. And then I'm going to search for my own name. Now, if you're in a lookup field with names, I would suggest searching by the last name because it'll be easier to find if you do it that way. So in this case, my account happens to be this one and my other two testing accounts are showing up there. But I want to be it on my current login. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK after selecting that. And as you can see, my name is added over here. And when I go back, my action items, if I have any of these due, will update for my action items. The other way to hit enable is once you select it, you can come down here and just click on the enable radio button that's down there at the bottom. And again, if you want, you can go and click on the export button. It's going to ask you how you want to export it. I'm not going to. I'm just going to click on that and go to the back button. Okay, I actually don't have anything with features for this particular contract, so my action items did not update at this point. Okay, over here. Document packages. Wait, before I go on. Okay, document packages. Document packages are an extremely important part inside of RMS. Basically, pretty much every single module you're going to go into is going to have a document package. Now, the purpose of the document packages is to be able to share files between government and contractors. There are two types of document packages inside of RMS. One document package for government only. So for documents that you don't share with the contractor, but you do want to share with other members of your team, or want to keep on record for legal reasons inside of the contract. You can add those documents to the government only document package, and I'll show you this in a minute. The other one is the shared or contractor document package. This is where you will receive any documents that the that the contractor sends to you. This is also where you will add any documents that you want the contractor to see. Now, the thing about the document packages is we currently allow electronically signing of documents that are added up into the document package if they are a DOCX or a PDF file. Those are the only two file types that we will allow for signing of documents electronically inside of RMS. There is also an option for manually signing by the contractor or the government, but please note that if the contractor manually signs a document and you as the government needs to go back in and sign, you only have the option of signing manually as the government as well, because we cannot guarantee that the document was uploaded in the proper format. So if we sign electronically, it may overwrite something or it may put it in the wrong place, and we do not want to have to do that. Now, it is important to note that if it's a contractor's document package and you are supposed to be going in there and reviewing some of the information, if the document package is showing up as not complete for the status, and I'll show you where to find that in a minute, then you'll need to go to the contractor and ask them to click on the submit for review button inside that document package, so that way you can actually go in and do your review and update anything that needs to be updated. So typical document packages will look like this. You'll have a little folder icon. You'll have 3 buttons for add, edit, and delete. And then if there is no document package that has been added, nothing will show up. If there is a document package that has been added, it will show up in the list that is right here. This is what the document package screen looks like once you enter into the document package. And you can add documents to the document package as long as it has not been completed, by clicking on either this add button over here or by dragging the files into this box over here. And again, I will demonstrate that later. Once you have uploaded documents into RMS, or if a contractor has uploaded documents and you want to see the details, you'll single click on the document and that information will show up down here. Now, you will notice that the date of the document is not editable. That is not going to be changed. That is simply the date of when the document was added to RMS. Not the date of the document itself, but the date it was added to RMS. You have the ability to view the document. And then you also have the ability to edit the document title. However, if you're going to edit the document title, only edit the last part. We don't actually recommend that you make any changes to the document title because the format of the document title is very important for when sending to PCF. So this format needs to be maintained. So that way, when people are searching for the documents, once they've gotten into RMS, PCF, you will be able to find them correctly. So we don't recommend that you change the document title. So make sure the document is titled correctly before uploading it into RMS. You can also add a description down here for that particular document. If you get a document that was manually signed by the contractor and they did not actually check the little box down here that says manually signed by the contractor, you can go ahead and sign that for them. This is only going to be an option if this electronically signed is not showing up. If it's showing up, then both of these boxes will be grayed out. The next thing to note down at the bottom is that you can go through and write your review notes in here. If the contractor had any notes that need to be sent to you, those will show up in this contractor notes to the government. Now, what you will notice on the description as well as the contractor notes to the government, there's this little notebook with a pen. That will allow you to make this description box or the contractor notes box bigger. So that way, if you have to type more information inside, then you can do that. It allows you just to have a bigger view. So that way you're not just trying to look on this tiny little thing if you need to write a paragraph. Okay. So this is basically how you're going to go about adding documents to the document package by using the drag and drop feature. You're literally going to open up your file explorer, drag it over to the box, and they will upload. This will also update your counts that are showing up in here. Now, these sort files tiles that are showing up here, these ones will show you how many of each file has been added. Now, it's important to note that these are the only file types that are allowed to be added into RMS at this time. And there is a limit of 250 megabytes per attachment. So if you have 2 files, one is 325 megabytes and the other one is 10 megabytes, the 10 megabytes will go through, but the 325 will not because it is too big to add to the document package. Okay, so this is where I was showing you, where I was talking about the checkboxes would show up if there was no electronic signature showing up. And as you can see, when this one is selected, these 2 checkboxes become available for you to check if it's needed. Although with the government remarks, usually those don't need to be signed, but I would check with your district's policy just to make sure if you guys need to sign that or not. Okay, now you also have the option of deleting documents, say for whatever reason the document was uploaded mistakenly, or they realized there was something wrong with the document and they needed to change it and upload a new one. You do have the option of deleting it by single clicking on the document title and then coming up here and clicking on delete. Of course, it's going to ask you to confirm that and then you're going to say yes, or if that's not the one that you want, you can go ahead and say no. So make sure you review the document title that this is the one that you actually want to delete, because once you delete it from here, unless you saved it, it's gone forever, except for the person who actually has the actual document. Okay. And this is talking about the counts. One thing to note about the Word document and PDF document counts. When a Word document is electronically signed in RMS, it is pretty much converted to a PDF file. So the count will change for the Word document and the PDF documents once you electronically sign a Word document. That Word document will now show up as the PDF file, not as the Word document. And the way to sign those is to single click the title of the document you wish to sign and then click on Sign Selected Documents. And we'll go through that in just a minute. Another thing to notice is that once you go through and sign it, you have the option of signing multiple at the same time. And depending on the type of documents, I may or may not recommend this. Usually though, when I'm signing documents, I never sign it in the same location, so I only do one at a time. But if you wish to sign more than one document at a time, it is important that you use these checkboxes only to select multiple items, because if you click on this document and then shift key and click on this document, that document will no longer be selected, only this document will be selected. So make sure you use these checkboxes over here if you want to select more than one document. And this is true for any lookup field that is going to have checkboxes that will allow you to select more than one. Always use these checkboxes in order to select something. Hold on. Let me give you a demo and then we'll open it up for questions. Okay, so let's see here. My best document package is probably going to be under the transmittal log. Here we go. All right, so in any module, as soon as it gets there, in any module, you can have up to 2 document packages. Now, usually the government document package is on the bottom and the shared or contractor document package is right above that one. So in this particular case, there's no document package in either one of those. This is a test contract, so sometimes that does happen in the test contract, but that really should not happen in any of your contracts. So if you get a transmittal and it comes in, you should always have something that's showing up in here. Okay, so I went ahead and clicked the add button to add a new document package to this particular transmittal that I'm currently working in. And I'm going to demonstrate how you can add documents to this document package and then signing them and going through and taking a look at them. Now, the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use this add button and then choose from file system. Now it's going to bring up my file explorer and I need to find my training folder. There it is. And I'm going to upload a Word document. Oops. Click on open, and then it's going to go through the process of adding that particular document here. Now, the other way to do it is for dragging and dropping. So let me get my file explorer open again. And from here, now this time, I'm actually going to drag and drop both my PDF file and my JPEG file into this lovely little box. Now, when dragging in from your file explorer over here, what you will notice is you'll get a little slash box that comes in. You can only add documents into this section down here or into this square right here. You can tell that you can add it because if you see, my cursor is showing a square underneath my mouse, whereas this one is showing, yeah, no, slash through, can't do that. So I'm going to drag it up here and let go. And then it's going to go through the process of adding those documents. And as the documents are added, you will notice that these counts up here will change. All right, so there's my JPEG and there's my PDF and the all attachments. Now, if you only want to see Word documents, you can click on the Word documents, same for the JPEGs, the PDFs, or all of them. Now I'm going to come over here and talk about the JPEG really fast. If you upload a photo to the document package, you will see a little preview that shows up down here in the sort of bottom right-hand corner. Now, you have the option of saving it to file by clicking on this button here or by clicking on the Export Selected Documents button up here. And if you look at a PDF file, there is no preview because it's not an image. So preview is only for images. And again, you can save it or you can export it. Regardless, you can do it either way. Now, the first thing that I'm going to demonstrate is signing manually. So say the contractor sent this to you and it has their signature on it, but they neglected to check the box. So you're going to come down here and help them out and check this lovely little box at this point in time. And what you will see is this contractor's signature status has changed to attested signature attached. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to sign another document, but this one I'm going to sign electronically inside of RMS. So I need to single click. Now it's very important that you single click, because if you double click on this, it's actually going to open it up for preview. You can also click on edit after it's been selected in order to preview it as well. Now I'm just going to go ahead and click on this sign selected documents. And then I'm going to make sure I choose the correct one. Now, the one that I want to sign happens to be this one right here, not the PDF file. So I'm just going to go ahead and click next. You have the option of adding a signature, a title for your signature to show up in this box right here. And if you want to use it all the time, you can use this checkbox. So it'll always default to showing up as this is your signature title. So with this one, help desk lead as my signature title, and I would check with your district's policy as to whether or not this is required. The next thing that you're going to want to note, because this is not a typical built-in document from RMS, it's not a 4025, it's not an ENG 93, it's not an RFI form, it's none of those typical ones. More than likely, you're going to need to set the digital signature position based off of where you need it to go. So to do that, you're going to double click in this box right here to bring up an ellipses button that is showing up on the right-hand side of the column. Once you click on that ellipses button, it's going to bring up a lookup box, which will show you all of the options that you have for digital signature positions. Now, most of these are built in. However, district administrators and certain other users have the ability to add custom locations, but that must be done in the district library, and it must be done by someone who has the appropriate permissions. That is outside of the scope of this, so we will not talk about that. But what you need to know is if you see any of these legacy items, please do not choose those. They are going to go away here really soon, but in the meantime, never use these, as these are not going to sign in the correct places because they are slightly different locations than the current ones right now. So anytime you have a SF30, use this one. If it's an ENG 93, depending on who you are, use these ones. And the same thing for all of the other files that are down, or all of the other signature positions that are showing here. Now, in this case, this is a custom one. So I'm just going to choose the last page, bottom right, because I know that's where I want to sign. I'm going to click OK. And then once that's done, I'm going to go ahead and choose finish. Now it's going to take it a few minutes. It's going to ask me for my pen to verify that I am who I say I am. So that way I'm not signing for somebody else. And it's thinking about it. There it goes. All right, let me bring this up here. Now, if you've recently logged into your computer or logged into RMS, it may not ask for your pen. That's okay. That's an Active Directory setting. And it's going to go through the process. Now, what you will see is this has become electronically signed by the government. Now, say that you need to generate a letter to the contractor to add into this document package. You can click on this button right here to generate a letter. And we'll go over this actually in more detail when we get to the correspondence section, but I'm just going to go ahead and show you what this looks like really fast. This is where you're going to pull all that information. And again, we'll go over this in just a minute. Now, notice my refresh button is telling me, hey, somebody has made a change. Before you back out of this module, make sure you click me. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Update any changes, and now I can go ahead and click the back button. It's important that you click on that refresh button before you hit the back button so you're not overwriting someone else's hard work. All right, now let me get back over to my other screen and we'll open it up for questions. Are there any questions about this first section?
Hey, Jennifer, real quick, there was a question in the chat, just for those that maybe don't have the chat open. There was a question about, is there a size limit for the document package? And the response was yes. The size limit for attachments is 250 megabytes per document.
Correct.
There's another question in the chat that says, how can you tell that someone made a change?
So that has to do with the circular refresh button. So remember, let me go back over to my RMS. Doo-doo-doo. Remember, when I was in there working, right now, my circular refresh button is just kind of sitting there like a still image. But when I was actually in the document package, that thing started doing a little circle. Anytime you were in something, if you see that circle moving, this refresh button moving around in a circle, that means somebody has made some kind of change. It may not be exactly in the view you're in, but it needs to be clicked on just to make sure you have the latest and the greatest. And then you can click on the back button when you're done at that point. Any other questions? See, my refresh button. It's telling me somebody has updated my contract. So if I wanted to back out of here, it would be best practice to click on this before I click on the back button.
So there's another question that says, can you go over why we would manually sign something for the contractor?
You would not. So the reason for that checkbox, let me go ahead and go back into that. The reason for that checkbox is if the contractor either forgot or did not know that this checkbox needed to be checked. So you are not actually manually signing for the contractor. You can actually return this document package back to the contractor for corrections if excuse me, if they didn't actually sign it and it's not showing up, or if you know that it's signed, you can go ahead and click that. But more than likely, you're probably going to return it to them for corrections. Now, what you will notice on this screen right here, I actually have a submit for review button. I did not go over this one. This basically means that the contractor did not submit this particular transmittal to the government for review, which makes sense because I created it. So let me go ahead and submit this and show you what that looks like. Now, usually that's the contractor's job. Once the contractor has clicked on the submit button, this is what you will see down here at the bottom. You've got an accept package and a return for corrections. If after reviewing the document package, you decide that something's not right, they need to make changes, they need to add more documents, or the document that they did add is not correct, then you can click on this return for corrections button to send it back to the contractor. If, however, everything is complete, everything is correct, everything looks good, and nothing else needs to be added to it, you can go ahead and click on this accept package. Now, once you click on that accept package, all documents in this particular document package will no longer be editable and will be ready to be sent to PCF. Now, documents from document packages do not get sent to PCF immediately. It takes anywhere from 24 to 72 hours for documents that were accepted, where the package was accepted, to go from RMS to PCF. So if you ever have any issues where your status for a document is ready to send to PCF for more than 72 hours, contact the help desk support and we can assist you with that. But usually for 72 hours, it will get sent and it will change to sent to PCF. Any other questions? If not, we can go ahead and move on to the next section. Oh,
is there a way to know what sorry, I can't read. Is there a way to know what date the package was sent to PCF?
I believe, let me verify this. This might be something that we'll talk about here in a minute anyhow. But I'm pretty sure it happens and you can do that in a contract file. No. From what I'm looking at in here, you do not know when it is sent to PCF, only that it is either ready to send to PCF or submitted to PCF. Any other questions? I'll give it one more minute and then we'll continue on to the next section unless...
What does PCF mean?
Paperless contract file. So it's basically the same thing as when you go into VCE to upload like your packages to contracting for them to be able to work the packages, like for a new contract or a mod or whatever it might be. It's the same thing. Jennifer, there's a question that says, is there a report we can pull that tells us where all the documents that need to be sent to PCF are located in RMS? Ooh.
I don't know if it tells it where it's located, but if you go into the contract file, it's sorted by areas, administration, correspondence, labor payments, modifications. And this is something that I'll kind of go over. This will give you an idea of where the documents are. So if you know which document you're looking for, you can do a search. Let's say I'm looking for a modification. Then it's going to go through and it's going to show you all of the different modifications. And what you will know is that these modifications come from modification 6. So you'll know to go to the finances tab and open up the modifications module and go into this particular modification itself. Does that answer the question? Okay. So we spent about 5 minutes on this section, so I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next section, and we will open up for more questions after the next section, and then again at the very end. Okay, so the next section is going to be the administration tab. This is the list of all of the modules that are in the administration tab and the basics for what you can do for each of those. You can review that at your leisure at a future time. Again, this is what the administration modules will look like when you log into a contract. The default location that you're going to go into is the administration, and this is what is going to show up. This gives you a brief overview of all of the things that you can do inside the administration tab. We're pretty much just going to hit on most of this stuff and give you some basics about what you can find, where you can find it, but a lot of this stuff is going to be set up probably by I think the PE. If not, you'll have to check with your district to find out who sets all this stuff up with your specific district. Okay. All right. So again, this is going through the same list of what can be found inside the administration tab. And the first thing that you can find in the administration tab is the contract description. So let me go back one screen. Okay, so under administration contract description, when you open that up, this is pretty much what you're going to see. Now, what this is going to do and what is most important is this top portion right here must be filled out. You've got to give it a title. You've got to have the short title, the fiscal year, the delivery order number, the contract number. Now, things to note about the contract number and the delivery order number. If your contract is linked to CFMS, it is very, very important that the contract number and the delivery order number are exactly matching what's in CFMS. If they don't, you may notice that you either can't send stuff to CFMS, you can't download from CFMS, or something else. You're not able to see what you're supposed to be seeing. So at that case, you'll have to go into CFMS, see what CFMS has, and then update this. If you don't have the correct permissions to update this, you'll know because when you go in, these will be grayed out. You won't be able to make any changes. You'll have to contact someone in your district in order to assist you with that. You can choose your contract office that the contract is associated with. Usually this is set up at the very beginning when the contract is set up. All of this information in the contract description is also usually set up once the contract is created. So usually going in, the only thing that you have to worry about in this view is the contract number and the delivery order number. And again, remember, contract ID all the way over here. Okay. So fiscal year is also very important because this determines whether or not it shows up in some of the contract reports or summary reports that may need to be run on contracts to find out, okay, for this fiscal year, which contract is behind schedule or on schedule or done. You can be able to find that information as long as you update the fiscal year correctly. Okay. So the next thing to take a look at is the contract status. So let me go back to really fast. That is going to be this one. Now, these slides are organized so that we go contract description, status, personnel, contract documents, contract file, contract setup. So we're literally just going to go right along with. So if you have RMS open and you're on the administration tab, you can sit there and look at those as we go along. So over there. Here we go. So the next important module that you're going to run into is the contract status. This is going to give you a brief overview of the current status of what is going on with the contract. Now, the contractor is usually responsible for uploading any status photos or providing any status photos. But check with your district's policy to see who's actually responsible for doing that. My understanding is those need to be updated at least monthly, but again, that is probably dependent upon the district and you'll need to verify with that. Now, inside this module, there are 3 tabs: the contract status photo, which is the first one that you will see, the contract monthly progress, which we will not discuss because that is more advanced and that will be discussed in another training. And the last tab is the phase status issues. So we're only going to be focusing on giving you a brief view of status photo and then status issues. Okay. So for the status photo, you have options for uploading the photo, saving the photo, or viewing the photo if you want to blow it up into a bigger view than what it actually has. Underneath, you will see there's a data grid that shows you a list of all of the previous pictures that had already been uploaded, and you'll also have the ability to change which one shows up in this view right here. Now, any picture that happens to be loaded in the contract status view will also show up on the main contract page when you log in. And what I mean by that is, let me go to contact menu, this picture right here. So the picture that shows up on the contract menu is going to be the one that is currently the active status photo. All right, the next thing that you are going to need to know about is the phase status issue. You will need to keep this updated. And if your contract is linked to P2, you will see these extra text boxes down here, which will allow you to update the information that's showing up in P2 or to send to P2, depending on how that happens to be set up. Again, check with your district's policy to see how often this needs to be updated, but you will need to update the status as well as any primary delay codes that happen to apply and enter any information that is specific to this particular contract that you're going into. Now, notice down here at the bottom, we've got some cost time growth. Some of this stuff is being pulled, if there's dates on them, they'll be pulled from, okay, so some of these are pulled from modifications, some of them are pulled from cleanse, and some of them are pulled from other areas. Now, we do have a full video that is talking about this as well as the contract status sheet, how this stuff is updated, where it comes from, kind of stuff. And it looks like I don't have that in here, but I will go ahead and link that video at the end of the slide so that way y'all can take a look at that if you need to. All right, so then the next module to take a look at is the contract personnel. This is where you can assign user roles to specific users inside a specific contract. So if you know that someone is supposed to be the project engineer for this contract, you can come down here, find their name from this little search box that's down here at the bottom and click on add by using this add button here. Now, notice that these little buttons look a little different than our other add buttons. There are 2 forms of add buttons. Actually having the word add, or where'd my mouse go? There it is. Having this plus button. So this means add. With the pencil, it means edit. With the X, it means delete. Excuse me. Apparently I ran out of water. I apologize. Okay, so when you are going to add a user to the user roles and the staff members, you're going to click on this add button that shows up right here, and it will add them. You'll go through the staff member lookup, you'll click OK, and you'll pick the staff member, and it'll go through and do this process. And I'll show you how to do this when we actually get to that point. Now, if you are looking for someone that you know is supposed to be in here and they do not show up in the staff member list, please contact the help desk support and we can assist you with that one. All right, this slide is going to show you how to edit those particular user roles that are set up on there. Basically, you're just going to double click, you're going to single click on the option and then choose the edit button, or you can double click on it in order to open up the edit view to change who's doing that, who's doing what on that particular. And of course, you also have the option to delete. All right, before I do that, I want to demonstrate the two things that we had just done. Okay, so the contract description is found right here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this to open it up. And again, the only thing that you really need to know about this one is your contract number and your delivery order number. These are the only important things after a contract has been set up that must be looked at in order to make sure everything is going to run in as possible. And all of this information, I would check with your district's policy to see if you need to fill out all of the information that's showing up on the below part. If you ever get this, that has to do with something that is different. In this case, this is not a real delivery order number and RMS knows it. And that's why it's saying, you can't follow that type. That's not correct. But I want it to say that way. So I'm going to tell it to ignore warnings and save and exit. If you also have a different style of contract number, you may have to do the same thing. The contract status. What we're looking at here, okay, so this is where you can upload, and this is what I was talking about, where you can see the list of all of the previous files that have been uploaded for photos for this particular contract. And in this particular case, this happens to be the current one, and what you'll see is here, this is the one that's actually showing as the current. And if I wanted to change that, all I have to do is click on this one. Or if I need to upload a new one, I can just click on upload new status photo and then choose my photo, choose open, and give it a couple seconds. It'll take, depending on your internet connection, it'll take a little bit to get it uploaded and into the system. And once that's done, just thinking about it, cool. Again, monthly progress is going to be for another training, so we're not going to go over that, but your phases statuses look like this. Anywhere you see these blue boxes, that means that's some kind of lookup field that you can go in and select specific information to update if you need to. Now, these are these buttons, those navigation buttons. If you don't want to hit the back button multiple times and you know you need to go back to the contract menu, you can just click on this contract menu. I do not advise that if you are in a progress payment. If you are in a progress payments, please always use the back button. Don't use these guys. Just use the back button, just in case. All right, contract personnel. These are all the people that have already been added. Say I don't want this person in here. I single click on it and I delete it, and that's going to remove it. If I decide that this person, that's not right. She's not a biologist. I can come in here. I can click edit. And then here's our lookup. It's the same person, but she's not a biologist. Maybe she's a chemist. Let me see. Do I have chemist in here? Nope, I don't. I have scheduler. Okay, I'm going to call her a scheduler. Okay. And back button to save. Oh, I got to refresh. Oopsies. Got to pay attention to that. All right, now I'm going to go back to the contract menu. And now the last slide that you saw before I went to the demonstration was the contract documents. Now this one is for legacy documents that were uploaded in 2.3.8. So if your contract started off in 2.3.8 and then was switched over to 3.0, this is where you would find those documents that were uploaded in 2.3.8. They are in this module here. If you did not, then you don't even have to worry about going into this module because it's not used for anything else. Everything else is in the contract file. So let me go over the slides about that first, and then we will continue on. All right, contract file. Contract file is the location for all documents that have been added to any document package anywhere within RMS. If you add a document to a document package, it will automatically show up in the contract file. If you delete a document from the document package, it will automatically be deleted from the contract file. If you need to add a document that needs to be part of the legal record to the contract and there is no appropriate document package to put it in, or the document package was already completed and sent, this is where you can go to upload that file so that way it can be sent to PCF. And we'll go through the process of how to add documents in here and how to view stuff and take a look at it. We kind of looked at it already. So this should look familiar to you. This is what I showed you earlier when talking about how to find out where a specific document is found. And these are all of the folders that they are going to show up in. Now, one thing to notice is that there's A through J showing up in here. These only show up when there's actually a document in a document package in one of these folders. If there is nothing in these folders, then you will not see that. So if this is a brand new contract and there's nothing really been added, when you go into the contract file, you're not going to see anything. Don't panic. It's okay. That just means nothing has been added. And the way to navigate in these is by these arrows that are off to the side to expand and extract. And that's kind of what I showed you when I went through and did my search. Again, if you know specifically what you're looking for, use the search box, because that'll make your life so much easier than trying to go through every single one of these and find one file. It's like finding a needle in a haystack when you're like 100 and some odd documents into the contract. So search button, it is your friend. Again, you can also change the grouping on this if you want to. By default, it defaults by the folder that it has to go in for the document packages. But you can also change the grouping to other stuff. You can add or take away from the grouping as I showed you earlier. Now, if you want to see all of these that are showing up in here, you can just use this expand button. It will expand every single one of the folders. So it'll open everything up so you can see everything that's available in there. If you decide that's not what you want to do, you can click on the collapse and it'll bring it back down to this view right here. All right, so manually adding a document to the contract file. Again, the reasons for manually adding to the contract file are a couple different ones, but if you ever find that you actually need to add a document to the contract file instead of a document package, then we have provided that for you. Once you click on add, it's going to ask you to select the section, and that is very important. You need to know what section it goes in, so that way when you complete it and send it to PCF, it goes to the right place. Okay. Once the document has been uploaded, everything is done, everything looks good, then you can click on the complete button and then send to PCF. Once you click on the complete button, it's done. You can't make any changes, you can't edit it, you can't delete it, you can't do much anything at that point. So make sure before you click on that complete that everything is done and correct in the way that it is supposed to. If the document needs to be signed, you have the option of signing it here. If the document title needs to be updated, again, remember, don't change the first part of the document title, only the last part of the document title. Now, this is the one and only place where you can change the dates of documents that are loaded into the contract, and that is because we don't know when these particular ones are done, because these are not done in a document package. So you have to select the date of the document here, and then of course you can add the description at this point. The other thing we allow you to do is edit, remove, or review the documents after you have uploaded them to the contract file. So let's see here. Let me go ahead and do a really quick demo. And I do mean really quick. All right. So I'm already in the contract file, as you can see here. And again, I want to look at what's in the correspondence. I can click here or I can click on this button. Just make sure you click somewhere where you can actually pull it up and look at it. Sometimes it's a little slow. Now, what I want to do is I want to add, so we have the option of add, edit, and delete. I would not use the delete button if you don't have to. So make sure if you click on the add button that you actually want something added where it's supposed to be added. Only use the delete if you've accidentally added it to the wrong place and you need to put it in the correct location. So you're going to click on add, and then this is the section that you're going to want to make sure. So if it's a payment, you need to make sure you pick the payments. If it's a submittal, then I would either type in submittal or transmittal. Aha, there it goes. And you'll just have to pick on which one it happens to belong to, so that way it goes to the right location. So I'm just going to put it as submittal registry in this case. Excuse me. Now, once that's done, again, you have the option of generating a document and selecting a document. So this is usually for when you need to generate a letter to a contractor, but it can be used for other things. I'm just going to select a document in this case. And again, I'm going to just pick my PDF file and tell it open, and it's going to go through the process. Now, once you've selected or generated the document, these two buttons become grayed out and you can no longer do anything else at this point. Now you can remove it, view it, or save it. Now, because this is a PDF file, I can't edit the document. Only can you edit The only things you can edit are Word documents. So keep that in mind. If you need to edit something and it's a PDF file, if you have a PDF editor, you'll have to do that outside of RMS first and then come in here. But you can remove the document, you can view the document, or you can save the document. If you click on the view button, it's going to take it a few minutes and it says it's been opened. It might open on the other screen. Just thinking about it. There goes. And yes, it did. It opened on the other screen. Ta-da! In this case, it just happens to be one of my test ENG 93s. And once you close it, that message goes away. And then I can come back here. Now, if I want to, I can update the last part of the title only. Doc. And then I can sign it by clicking the sign document. Now, this signing process is exactly the same as the signing process that we've already gone over, so I'm not going to do that again. But once you are finished and added some description, as required by your district. Oops, I can type, I promise. You're going to click on this complete button. Again, don't click on this button until you know for sure it is done and correct and uploaded as it's supposed to. After you click on the complete button, if it needs to go to PCF, you're going to click on the send to PCF. Same rules apply as the document package. Aha. Now, something to note, when sending to PCF, it wants to know who is sending. This is one of the few things that we actually record in RMS and take and make sure it's going through. So it's going to show your name. You're going to click OK. It's going to ask you for your PIN. If it hasn't been more than 15 minutes, it's not going to ask. But if it's been more than 15 minutes, it will probably ask, which has been for me. And then it's done. Now, this is submittal register missing doc. Let me come back over here and show you doc. Ta-da! It reduces it all the way down to submittals. Now, I can't see anything because I don't have it expanded. So I have to click on that and then click on this one and voila, there's the document and it says ready to send to PCF. Again, this can take 24 to 72 hours depending on how many documents need to go to PCF and what time your district's scheduled upload goes through and some other factors. But 24 to 72 hours, it should change from ready to send to PCF to accepted in PCF. Or errors, things to note. If you get this and it comes back with a status of errors from PCF, single click on it, come down to the bottom and look at this error text box that's down here and see what those errors are. Now, if it's coming back with errors from PCF, you will need to contact PCF support to find out what those are if the description is not descriptive enough for you to be able to figure it out. If it's something that it needs to be resent, you can always contact the help desk support and we can provide a little bit more instruction for you at that point. Okay. That little section over here. Next thing is contract setup. This is another important module that you'll need to at least be familiar with. And it has, what is this, 5 tabs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6. There are 6 tabs in the contract setup. The most important nope, I lied. The most important ones are the first 4. The first 4 are going to be the ones that most people go into. The 5th one right here, this dredging, is only going to be applicable to contracts that are set up for dredging. And DVA is only going to be applicable for Department of Veterans Affairs contracts. So if your contract is part of Veterans Affairs, this tab will need to be filled out. We're not going to discuss that in this particular training because that is outside of the scope of our stuff. Administration and funding. All right, when you come into administration and funding, this under contract setup, this is where you can set the use of connecting to CFMs, connecting to P2, how to connect to P2, whether or not you're using one phase, whether or not the government can enter contractor data. Notice there, let me see this one right here. There's a big old caution sign that's beside this. This is because it is not recommended for government to enter contractor data. If you are going to use this, check with your district's policy to make sure you are allowed to do so. This will also tell you if you're going to be tracking insurance, payrolls, labor interviews, the DD 1354 inside of RMS, all of this information. If you're going to send documents to PCF, you need to check these, or whoever sets up the contract needs to set this stuff up prior to the start of the contract itself So that way the users, no, excuse me. So that way the contract is set up to do everything that it's supposed to. Now down here at the bottom, we have recently shut off RMS 238 as well as QCS. So as of right now, those are still showing up in the list, but they are not really available for you to really do anything with them at this time, and they will eventually be going away. If you are using CFUMS, you have to specify which CFUMS database you are going to be using. So if you happen to be in Los Angeles district, most of the time, your CFUMS database is also going to be Los Angeles district. However, there are those rare occasions where your district is different than the CFUMS district. So check with your district's policy to find out about that information. Okay, now if you're going to track contractor payrolls, you're going to click this lovely little drop down box right here and decide which milestone to actually end the payrolls on. And I think I have that showing in another slide. The last thing on this page that is very important is the funding and funding method. Now, this is very advanced. 9 times out of 10, this is not going to change. Most contracts are going to use track funding at funding account level, pre-planned obligations for payment on all claims. Most of the time, that's going to be the case. If that is not the case for your contract, there are certain things that will change. However, that is outside of the scope of this training, so we're not going to go into that. Also note that right underneath that, you've got your fund types. So if you are outside of the US and you are actually doing your funds outside of US dollars, you can update that here. And category codes. We have options for category codes for the DD 1354 if you are using it inside of RMS. There are 2 sets of category codes that are available inside of RMS. Now, even though this checkbox says enable FY22 lookups for the DD 1354, if you need a lookup that's not showing up in this drop-down box, then you can always check this enable FY22 to see if it shows up in there. Even though your fiscal year may not be 2022, that is okay. That was just so that way we had the ability to maintain it for contracts that needed the old codes and allow it for the new ones to be used for new contracts on this one. So just be aware, just because it says FY22 doesn't mean it's limited to only fiscal year 2022 for contracts. Okay. Payments and modifications. So most of the information that shows up under the obligations for payments, all of the information that shows up under obligations for payments, this list that shows up right here, this data grid, is going to come from CFUMS. Unless it's not linked to CFUMS. In this case, this is a non-CFUMS account, and then you can set this up in the contract finances, but that is outside of the scope of this particular training. So, but if your contract is linked to CFUMS, your obligation line items will show up here. Whatever the title is for that obligation will show up here. And what is set in CFUMS for due dates, for refund dates, or for final payment dates will show up here. So that way you can go ahead and take a look at that. Do we need to talk about anything else on here? So this is where you can actually set up the progress payments to allow additional earnings. If a contract needs to have additional earnings, like for bonds or for something else that doesn't have a pay activity, and you want to allow the contractor to request money outside of the pay activity, you can check this box in order to allow that to go through. Also, if you want the prompt pay document to show all of the activities and not just the activities that are current for that particular progress payment, you can check this lovely little box right here. And then sometimes you'll have some messages about CFUMS that will show up in here as well. Most of the information that you're going to want to know about CFUMS is going to be under contract finances. And again, that is going to be for more advanced users. Any modifications that are done by the ACO, you can say you can set up the defaults here, as well as the CO modifications. You can set up the defaults here. Those can also be set up inside the modifications as they go through as well. Quality assurance. So this is missing something. Okay. So I'm actually going to pull up RMS to talk about this one because it is not showing what I want it to show. So contract setup, Bear with me while it pulls up. There we go. And quality assurance. All right. It is the same. Cool. So in this view here, what you can see is you can set up the type of report that you're going to use. Now, there's two different types. There's military, and then there's also civil. Which type you choose will determine which type of narratives are used for your QA and QC reports. If you choose military, then inside the district library, it's either the district library or system library, I can't remember which one off the top of my head. Those narratives can be set up to be viewed for the correct type. So that way, when you go through and do your narratives, they're already there for you. However, that needs to be done by someone who has the correct permissions and is outside of the scope of this particular training. You can set up the number of QA shifts by clicking on this drop down here. You've got 1, 2, and 3 shifts. If you decide you want 3 shifts, then you have the option of adding 3 different people for the chief and the alternative for the QA reps. I'm just going to sit it back down here. You can also set the project engineer and the on-site core COR. At this point, you need to make sure this is all set up prior to actually starting of the contract, so that way you can make sure all of the information is entered correctly into the contract itself. Okay, submittals. Aha. This was the one that I wanted. Let me come over here. Okay. So for the submittal tabs, this is pretty important. This actually will let you know whether or not this contract is going to use SDF file, or if it's going to have manually entered scheduled start and finish dates for all of the activities. In this case, currently I have it set up for manually entered. However, I'm going to change this to importing because NAS, this indicates that it's going to use an SDF file for getting in new pay activities, setting up the money, getting all of that set up. It's actually easier to use the SDF file than it is to manually enter most information. So if the contractor has scheduling software that allows SDF exports, they can import it into RMS and make it work. Now, if you are going to choose this submittal type, then this checkbox shows up and it requires the actual start and finish dates to be entered in the QC reports. If that's where you want that information to show up only and not to show up through the SDF file, then you just check on this box right here. This thing will also show you if you have multiple registers. Some contracts do have multiple registers, so if you do, you'll be able to see them here. If you need to add another register, you can add that here or you can delete it as well. In this case, this is where you set up the dates for when the review period is for each of the classification types for contracts and the number of copies for each of those classification types that are going to be sent. Who the default government reviewer happens to be and who it needs to go to. So address transmittal packages to la la la. And again, these are lookup fields. So when you click on these, it'll bring up a lookup. In this case, this is going to be a staff lookup. This is going to be a district office lookup. This is outside the scope, but just so you know, I'm just going to show you these really quick, just so you see what they look like. But we're not really going to talk about those. Let me come back over to here. And the next thing that we talk about is P2 projects. Okay, so if your contract is associated with a P2 project, this is where you will be able to find all of that information in one place that is set up in this particular area. When you have a project that is linked to P2, you're going to click on this add button. It's going to bring up a lookup of all of the P2 projects that are available to be linked to a contract inside of RMS. Note, if it does not show up in that list, then you're going to need to go back to P2 and make sure of a couple of things to ensure that it's coming through here. Now, I've included a link to a video on how to link P2 projects to RMS. If you start at 410, that one will specifically tell you how to go through and fix that. However, if you just want to see what it is from start to finish, you can start at the very beginning and just watch it all the way through. Don't remember how long that particular video is, but most of our videos that are up on YouTube are anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the topic and what's being covered. Okay. If everything shows correctly in P2, but it's still not showing in here, please contact the help desk support and we will be more than happy to assist you. All right. Bottom of the P2 projects, you have all of the details for each individual P2 project. If you happen to have two P2 projects that are linked to one contract, when you, let me back up. When you click on, you single click on this one, all of the information for that particular P2 project will show up down at the bottom with those 3 tabs. Excuse me. So for the task status, as you can see, the information that is displaying is the status, delay codes, progress, total earnings, and customer usage issues. This should be the same thing that shows in the contract status, but this one is coming from P2. And then for the milestone events, these are all of the milestone events that are in P2 at the time, all of the information that is showing up in P2. And then, of course, the cost time growth that's showing up from P2 as well. Now, I don't currently have a contract that has a P2 project listed to it. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and skip the demo on this one because we're running out of time. So I'm going to just go to the next one, correspondence. All right, so correspondence provides you a way to communicate with the contractor on anything that's related to the contract itself, if they need information. There's some information that'll show up in here. Different types, they'll show up as an H for contractor home site, S for contractor site office, or C for letters from the government. What you will see when you go into the correspondence is there are some sort tiles that are up at the top for various different formats of the actual correspondence, what process they're in. And if you click on each of the boxes, it'll show all of the correspondence that are linked to that one. And when you click on the received, when you click these sort buttons, these titles right here will change accordingly to match what it is that you're currently looking at. Now, this drop down, when you click on the add button from here, this add button, these 3 are not going to show up unless you have checked allowed government to enter contractor data. Again, don't recommend that. So most of the time, you're not going to see these 3. You're just going to see these 3 here and this bottom one down at the bottom. Okay, so I talked about that. All right, so this is where it's talking about this particular correspondence is from the government. You can tell because it starts with a C. Remember, if it's an H or an S, it's coming from the contractor, either their home office or their site office, depending on how they set that up. Oh, the numbers that you enter in here are usually set up by default, but if you need to change them, you can do so at that point. But once you've clicked OK from that last page, that's it. You can't change the number at that point. Now, when you go through and look at the correspondence, you need to fill out a couple of information, the date of the letter, the status of the letter, if it requires an answer or not, if it has unresolved issues. The summary of the letter goes in here. Again, use this notepad to make it bigger if you need to have more information. And then you're going to use the add button to put a document package to add the letter itself. Now, you also have the answer if you've asked a question of the contractor and the contractor has answered. You can select letter answered by, if the contractor has answered, then you can either create a new letter to answer the particular correspondence, or you can create an existing letter that's already answering it and add it to this little section here. And then the select letters answered by, so if this particular one is answering a letter for another correspondence, you can use this button right here. Now, when you use this one, when you go into that other correspondence, it will show up in this box for the other correspondence because it was added here and vice versa. Okay, so this is just giving you a basic example of what they went through. An answer due by date, the letter dated as, draft letter not complete. It's going through and showing all of that. Again, drag and drop is exactly the same. The document packages are the same regardless of which field you happen to be in. So we're not going to, ooh, that's not correct. That should be 250. So I will update that and get that out. And then again, drag and drop, it comes over here. All right, again, signing. And then completing the package is also the same. You're going to click on the complete package. Now, because this is originating from the government, there is no accept or return. There's just complete. So in this case, you're going to complete the package. And once you are finished, you've completed the package, the status is set to accepted, excuse me. And then you filled out all of the information, you know you're done. You can either set it to letter approved or letter sent, depending on your district's policy on how it needs to go through. You might even have to do a letter complete, send it to someone else for them to review. And then once they review it, they do letter approved and it'll come back to you and you'll choose letter sent. So these are the options that will show up in that case. And once it's sent, everything becomes non-editable. And then it shows up in the sent answer required, because in this case, we did check the box where the answer was required. Okay, receiving a letter from the contractor, it's basically pretty much the same thing, but instead of being a C, it's going to be an H or an S. Basically, you're going to go in, you're going to open up the correspondence that the contractor has sent to you, and then take a look at that. Again, it's the document package is exactly the same. So this is where I was talking about for generating letters. So you're answering the contractor, you can generate the letter for a pre-written district template that can go ahead and have everything in there and just put the particulars for that particular contract if it's a common problem. And what you'll do is you'll choose the specific selection for the template. And then once you've chosen your template that you're going to be using, it's going to put up that. It'll put up some prompts that'll ask you to fill out. Once all of that stuff is filled out, it will add it to the document package where you can double click on it and view it to make sure everything looks good. Okay, I really want to leave some time open for questions because we're running pretty close to time, but we still have quite a bit of information to go. So really quickly, I'm just going to hit on the request for information. The request for information is pretty much very similar to the correspondence, but this is when the contractor has specific questions for something particular in the contract, but it looks fairly similar. Hang on just one second. Thank you, Paul. All right. So this slide will show you some tips for how to go about using the contractor. What you will notice, not the contractor, I apologize, for the RFI. What you will notice is when you come in here, there are two tabs inside of the RFI, contractor RFI and the government response. Now, the RFIs are 9 times out of 10 supposed to come from the contractor to the government, not the other way around. However, we do allow the government to send an RFI to the contractor themselves, but there will be no way for them to edit that one. So I would recommend if you need the response from the contractor, use the correspondence. But again, check with your district policy to see what they want and how they want it done. Once the contractor has gone through and filled out all of their part of the information and they have marked it as complete, you can then go into the government response tab. You can look at the contractor response tab and then you can go into your response and make your answer set up. And then once you have fully answered it, you need to check the box answered complete. And there's another checkbox that will show up. It says COR approved. It's COR or ACO, I can't remember which, approved, but it will say approved and it will show up right underneath this box. You need to check that if you want the contractor to be able to see your response. If you do not check both of those checkboxes, then the contractor will not be able to see your response and they'll come back and ask, hey, I can't see the response. What's going on? Just make sure those checkboxes are both checked so that way the contractor can actually see them. And this is, oh, here you go. COR, ACO approved. So this is exactly what it looks like. You need to make sure that these are both checked. All right, contractor user entries and special data. This is to work in conjunction with the templates. So if you have templates that are supposed to pull out contract numbers or contract titles or any of that stuff, you can go in here and set all of that stuff in here as long as it's already set up in the district library, I believe. I believe it is set in the district library. Now, if you want to see all of the, we call them macros or contractor or contract user entries, same thing, but it will be listed as user defined macros. You want to see what is available in your district, you can go to the Summary Reports, Library Reports module and choose RMS or type in the macros, type in user-defined macros. So I have this screen right here, which if it'll let me, is this the right one? There we go. Let me see if I can zoom in on this so you can see that. Ding. Aha, there we go. So I started typing in, this is the summary reports. So this is at the base of the district. You go log into the district. The first thing you see, those tabs up at the top that I told you we were going to talk about, that's where summary reports are. So once you open up the summary reports, you click on this search box, this filter box right here that says library reports, and then search for macro, and it will show up RMS Word macros. So that way you can actually see the list of all of the macros that are associated with your contract, and you can add that information. Ooh, what information is supposed to show up in here if you want to see that list. All right, very important, prime contractor. So the prime contractor module is going to have all of the information that is needed for the prime contractor. This top portion, let me zoom in so you can see. Ding. All right. This top portion must be filled out by the government. It cannot be filled out by the contractor. The only part of this that can be filled out by the contractor is the NAICS code. That's it. Everything else must be done by the government. So if your contractor says, hey, I can't see my contract, there are two things that you can look at. One, that the prime contractor is assigned correctly, and two, that the contractor staff is set up correctly. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. Most of the information for the home office, the site information, the bonding, company, work days, all of this information, most of that is going to be filled out by the contractor. Again, check with your district's policy to see how that is handled. Okay, now to set the prime contractor, assuming the prime contractor is already set up in the district itself, over just a little bit. Basically what you'll do is you'll pull up this lookup and you'll look specifically for the prime contractor. If they don't show up in that lookup, then you will need to contact someone who has the ability to add a prime contractor to the district to get that done. Although you can enter information in here and create a prime contractor if the prime contractor is not already in the district. However, we do not recommend that. We recommend that it be done through the district, that is district office. Okay. Talked about that already. Okay. The thing about the prime contractor, one thing to really emphasize, if this is the first time this is being set up and the contractor there are no contractor staff, if this is a brand new prime contractor and there's no contractor staff, you'll need to set that up. The government has to set up the very first user, and they'll do that by clicking on this add button. And then after they click on the add button, it's going to bring up, okay, what's the user's email address? Because contractors only have the ability to log in with an email address. So first, you need to get the email address from the contractor, and you need to verify that the address is spelled correctly. If you make a mistake on this slide right here, and you click OK, you cannot correct that. You will have to re-enter a new staff member with the correct email. So make sure you verify that the email is spelled correctly before clicking OK. After you have clicked OK, the next thing that you need to do is, of course, enter their first name and their last name, and then check this lovely little box right here. Ding, ding. Has administrative rights. So that way they can actually get in there and start adding the rest of the users that need to be added to their contract. Okay, so I think at this point, because we only have about 10 minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and open it up for questions about what we have discussed so far and go from there. And are there any questions? Oopsies. No questions?
I got a question. How do you do that? How do you do that with your place?
Say that again?
How do you do that speed thing with your place?
Practice? I'm not sure. I've worked with kids. That's probably why. So I see a question here. What work can be done in the offline mode? So currently right now, the offline mode is still being developed. It's been shelved as other things are more important. So right now, the offline mode doesn't really do anything at this point in time. Okay, my computer wants to reboot. Give me a second while I tell it to wait. I can't tell it to wait. Okay, let me just get it off my view. All right, let's see here. Is there a way to know who is contractor authorized signer for the SF30? I believe that's a district policy or procedure. You would have to contact your district somebody in your district to ask that question. All right, so I'm just looking over all of the questions that are in there right now. Is there a way? Wait, is this one? For RFIs, under the government response, the secondary reviewer now has to respond. Many designers do not use environmental and construction folks need to input secondary reviewer marks. Is there a way you can change that? So the secondary reviewer, let me just go ahead and pull that up really fast. Oh, wrong keyboard. Okay, let's go over here, ignore and exit. RFIs, 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 da, 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 da. Gotta wait. Just thinking about it. Eventually. Okay. So if you have an RFI, let me see, I'm just going to randomly pick this one. And your RFI has to have a secondary reviewer. The only person that can be chosen for the secondary reviewer must be already a user inside of RMS. And if they are not a user inside of RMS, then they will not show up in the lookup field for the secondary response. Now with this one, I'm not able to do that because it's already core approved. So I'm going to uncheck this and uncheck this to allow myself to edit this one. So if I decide I want a secondary reviewer, I have to click on this add button, and then it's going to bring up a staff lookup. Now, this is a test district, so the staff lookup is going to be a lot different than what your district is going to look at. You shouldn't have any of these 9 sets, so I'm just going to search for myself. I have a couple of different ones. Now, I know that Jen McGugan is the current login user that I have, but these 3 are not, so I'm just going to randomly pick this one. The thing is for the secondary reviewer, for legal reasons and other particular requirements, the only person who can make any changes to the secondary response is the secondary responder. And this is to make sure nothing is, what's the word I'm looking for? Everything is legit. We don't want somebody to go in and make a comment and then be like, oh, wait, I don't like what they said. Let me change what they said. And then that person will be like, another person will come along and be like, why did you say that? That's not right. And be like, I didn't say that. We don't want that to happen. So we have shut down the secondary responder to only being allowed to be edited by the individual who has been set as a secondary reviewer. So that is the reason why it is not open for everybody to edit. But again, if the user is not already logged into RMS, you won't be able to pick them from the secondary reviewer list. You can choose yours, but I hesitate to say that because it depends on your district policy. All right, let's see. I see something new in here. SF30 signer is set in. Oh, James answered the question. Wonderful. RMS used to allow both contractor and GDA to sign submittals electronically. No, I can at best print out the 4025s. Okay, so this user's question is, RMS used to allow both contractor and GDA, government authority, to sign submittals electronically in RMS. Now I can at best print out the 4025 with the contractor signature without approval codes. Without approval codes. Okay, so the only way the approval codes are going to be attached to the 4025 are going to be when you electronically sign inside of RMS. And again, the only way that the government will be able to electronically sign in RMS is if the contractor has signed. But let me address his question by actually going into the transmittal log. Let's see, this one doesn't have a QA code yet. No, it does have a QA code, but hasn't been signed. Perfect. So in the past, we have allowed you to go into the document package itself and electronically sign the 4025 there. Unfortunately, that you can still go in there, but it will not apply the QA codes because there's no way to guarantee that it's completed at that point. So the only time the QA codes are attached to the 4025 is if you click this apply QA codes and sign 4025. You, however, are not allowed to use this button if the contractor has manually signed the 4025. And again, that's because we don't know how the contractor uploaded that 4025. We don't know if it's accidentally slanted, if it's sideways, if it's upside down. And when you are signing it, we want to make sure that those codes don't get placed in the wrong location. So that way, when it is sent to PCF, everything is legit and put in the right case. I hope that answered your question. And it's not so much that necessarily you're doing something wrong. It could be something that the contractor is doing something wrong. So if they are not manually signing and you are having problems electronically signing, please open up a support ticket and we'll be more than happy to assist you with that. Tried to upload a release of claims letter that was already signed. It would not let me complete the upload unless the document was signed again. Suggestions. I am not familiar with the release of claims letter. James or Paul? James or Paul, are you guys on right now?
Well, this is Bill Herrick that asked. So that possibly could pertain to any signed document that you're trying to upload in there.
So which document package are you in? Because that shouldn't do that.
So I went to, I was in the closeout portion. That contract that was. And essentially where you were showing the upload PCF files. So for each one of those sections, you showed the one drop-down screen that showed all the different signatures or what documents that you would be signing. There is one for release of claims, but what I'm saying though is that the release of claims was already signed after or prior to. So now it would ask for another signature to be able to upload it into the package.
Oh, you can just check the checkbox for manually signed outside of RMS.
It didn't have that in the PCF file, and it just kicked me out of there too.
Okay. So if that's the case, go ahead and submit a support ticket, and we'll go ahead and take a look into it to see what's going on. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And again, I did post a link to be able to get into the support tickets really fast. If you didn't get the link, you can always click this help button. When you go to the help button, you can go to open a support ticket. It's going to send you to JIRA. Now, inside of the PowerPoint slides that I sent, all the way at the very end, there is a bunch of YouTube tutorial videos, which will walk you through the process of how to change or update or modify your JIRA account, because your JIRA account is separate from your RMS. So if you want to submit a support ticket, you can click on that, or you can just give us a call at 442-333-1011. And that information is in RMS, as you can see right here, our phone number. Okay, let's see, what other questions do we have? How do we get access to contractor mode? It has never worked for me. So contractor mode, there's RMS behaves for me because our T2 is currently undergoing some stuff. I'm going to use my navigation here to go back to the main screen. And this is what I wanted to show you guys earlier, but didn't have time, is if you want to get back to the login screen from the same view that you're in, you can click on this login screen. And it's going to show this page right here. Now, if you want to use contractor mode, you click on this little checkbox right here. However, in order to get that to work, you need to add yourself to the contractor staff. Again, we don't recommend this. This is only as a last case scenario. And if you are having problems and you have approval to go ahead and use contractor mode, then I would suggest submitting a support ticket. And we'll go ahead and look in to see why you were unable to access contractor mode.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yes.
And everyone else on the line, we can take a break, let Jennifer's voice rest a little bit, give us 5 minutes, and we can continue if you can hang in there with us. There are a lot more slides to go through, and we were just going to take the opportunity to go through them.
Yeah, and let me ask, if you would like, we could do it this way too. If there are specific topics that we haven't covered so far that you would like to know something specific about, or you have no idea how to use, but you need to at least have an overview of it, or whatever it might be, go ahead and put that in the chat, and then that will help us hone in on where to go from here, because we do have a lot more slides, but I also want to make sure that if there's just something that's like burning in the back of your mind that you're waiting for us to get to, or that you would like for us to go over, that we make sure we address that. So go ahead, let's let Jennifer take a break, and then let's check the chat for those topics.
Okay, so I did see someone who had a question about installing RMS from the launcher. One thing to note, I'm guessing that's what it is. So basically, you just need to go to the app portal and choose install now or add to cart. I would recommend using add to cart, because if you've switched computers, it's more important if you switch computers that you use add to cart to verify that it's going to the correct computer. All of that is detailed in the video that I provided at the beginning of the slides for going to the app portal in order to update it. It is not an instantaneous process. So once you request software to be installed, specifically the RMS launcher from the app portal, it's going to send you an email letting you know, I've got the request. And then CEIT is going to run its scripts, get everything done. And it's important that once you start this process, you remain connected to the network until you get the second email stating that the program has been completely installed. Once you get that second email, you can go in and work on RMS to your heart's content. If for whatever reason it doesn't work at that point, then yes, you will need to contact CEIT and ask them to get all that stuff set up for you. Okay, I don't see. Yeah, and it can take a full day connected to a VPN, especially. So the last time I requested RMS to be installed on from the app portal, I was connected to the VPN and working from home, and I had to leave my computer on overnight before it finally showed up with the second email and going through. So it can take some time. A lot of it just depends. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with the training. Let me just get to the right page. Log back in. Oh, it's waiting. All right. Okay. So my pin should show up somewhere. All right. The next module on the administration tab is the subcontractors module. The subcontractors module is required for any contract where the contractor has some subcontractors, because we do need to keep track of the information for those subcontractors, insurance, payrolls, if you're requiring it for the contract, those kinds of things. And what you can do is you can monitor all of that stuff in the subcontractors module. All right. So we're going to go over this in a little bit. I have been asked to go over the transmittals. So give me a second while I navigate through my slides to get to the transmittal section.
Yeah, the reason is I want to make sure we hit on that. And then I'll just say we will wrap up this training pretty soon, but I will encourage everybody to look through the slide deck. I'm trying to post it on the SharePoint. It's not wanting to do it. It's just sitting here and spinning. But when we get them uploaded, and we can put them on the website as well, the RMS website, but look through the slides because there's a lot of detail in the slides. So if there are topics we don't cover out loud today, they may be in the slides, and including the topic we did today for the brown bag. I believe it's towards the end of this. So if you missed that, it's also included in here, but it's also on the SharePoint in a separate slide deck. So so as you can see, Jennifer's clicking through. We won't necessarily go through all of these since we are running short on time. However, again, look through the slides. They have the screenshots. If you have questions, let us know. And then what we'll do is to make sure that on the next training that we cover the things that we didn't meet today. And then we're also going to be going out and asking for y'all to give feedback on things that you want to make sure we do cover in the trainings, whether it's brown bag or these. So we'll give Jennifer a few more minutes to go through the submittals, and then we'll probably wrap up, answer any questions that you have. And then, like I said, just make sure you look through all the slides because there's a lot of really good information in here that we may not cover today or that you can refer back to if you need to as well. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you. All right. So submittals. Pretty much if you need to know where your contract is, your contractor is going to have to send you submittals letting them know, okay, we've done this, okay, we've done that. And you can go through and review those. Now, to get those set up, you have to set up the specification section and the submittal register before you can start sending the transmittals and submittals in the transmittal log. And then the last thing that's available in the submittals tab is the submittals assignment. And we will see that. Yep, on the next page. Here's the specification section, module, register, transmittal log, and assignments. Okay, so when you're doing the specification section, you need to make sure this gets set up. Two things. There are two ways in order to get the specification and the submittal register into RMS. It can be manually inputted either by the government or the contractor, or it can be imported from an external file. And I'll show you how to do that in just a bit. But there are three master formats from which you can choose specification sections unless you want to enter in your own. And they are the 19, the 2004, and the 2014. Now, what's in those lists can be found in the district, I believe it's the system library. And you can go through and look at that. But really, if you want, you can just click on the add button. And when you choose add and you choose the master format, you'll be able to see the information there too if you don't have access to the system library. Now, remember, contractors are not going to be able to see anything in the system library because they don't have access to that. And their view is completely different than what your view is when you go to log in. Moving on to the submittal register, this is where the individual items for each section are going to be entered. And this cannot be set up until after the specification section is set up. So you must set up the specification section, and then you can come in and set up the submittal register. What you will see, again, this is a data grid, so it has the same options. You can filter, you can group it, you can sort it, and then you have these over here, which is telling you when something is due and outstanding. And these dates, these numbers are based off of either the pay activities or the submittal items. That depends on how your contract is set up. So if you have any questions about which and where and how, you can post it in the chat and we can talk about it. But for the most part, just know that these numbers are based off of either the activities that are associated with these submittal items or the submitted items themselves. Okay, let's see here. Yep, talked about all that stuff. Now, when you add a submittal or edit a submittal item, you're going to go to the edit submittal item view, and this is what you're going to look at. It's going to show you what the section number is, and you can update it by clicking on this lookup field right here. And if you need to change the item number, you can do that here and here. I don't recommend changing these ones unless your district policy requires it. For the most part, RMS will automatically assign the item number and the section number based off of how it was entered from the specification section or the submittal register. If it has to be set for an activity, if it's required for an activity, you need to make sure the link to the activity shows up here. And you can find that activity by clicking on this box. It'll bring up the lookup of all of the activities that are currently in your contract, and you select that and you're good to go. One thing to note about the submittal register and required for activity. If the contractor changes the activity ID from their scheduling software and then uploads an SDEF into RMS, it could affect the information that shows up in here. So it is highly recommended that you ensure the contractor doesn't change any any IDs, activity IDs for any of their uploads with the SDEF file, because otherwise it will cause duplicates or it will cause deletions and it will be affected in the progress payments. So make sure that's something to take in mind. Otherwise, you just click on this required for activity and set it up. If you need a paragraph number, a drawing number, you can need that. This information is usually set up by the government. This start date will be selectable if you don't have it set up to be based off of the activity start and finish dates. Now, that information is set up in contract setup. So you can go back to contract setup to find that information. All right, so transmittal log. This is where you're going to receive any transmittals that are sent to you from the contractor. So if a contractor sends you a transmittal, first place you're going to go is you're going to go to the transmittal log, and then you're going to click on pending government receipt. And then you're going to enter the date this way. You're going to double click on this one to bring up your date picker icon. Let me see if I can zoom in on that and show you. Bing. There we go. So it's kind of hard to see even on my side. So I'll show you this in actual RMS here in just a minute. But there's your date picker icon, and you can go through and select the date that you received the excuse me, the transmittal. Okay. And again, there's document packages that are associated with these particular transmittal items, and the process is exactly the same. Everything is done the same way. Now, something to note, if you return the transmittal for corrections because something is wrong with it and it needs to be reloaded, if you also need them to update the document package, you must return the document package for corrections first, then go to the main transmittal screen and return the transmittal for corrections second. Sometimes some government will just return the document package and not return the actual transmittal, or vice versa. Again, check with your district policy to see which way is most appropriate for you guys. Now, as you can see in here, I have the full updated process for the transmittal linked here for YouTube, and this will go through everything. It will go through adding the specification section, adding the submittal register, accepting the transmittal, editing the transmittal, doing all of the updates. It's going to go into way more detail than what I've got right here. So if what you want is more detailed, you can go ahead and click on this link once you get the slides, and you'll be able to watch that at your leisure at any point in time for your own reference. Okay, so actually I'm going to do a demo on that really fast, and then we'll open it up for some more questions. So oops, I forgot to uncheck my box to be able to get into contractor mode. So I need to log back in. Sorry. I have a bad habit. When I'm waiting, I tend to sing to myself. So y'all get to be entertained while you're in this training. Okay, thinking about it. And where is my pin request? It might be hiding behind my screens. Hold on a second. Let me minimize this and make sure it's not hiding behind something. Okay. They may have turned something off. So Carrie, do you want me to show parts of the transmittal video since it doesn't seem like I'm going to be able to get into RMS?
No, I mean, I think just go through the slides, and then we've got the videos on the RMS website that people can refer back to if need be.
Okay. All right, so yeah, I know it took me a long time to get in the last time. So while it's doing that, I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next section unless we have questions on the transmittal section. I'm going to check the chat here really fast. When you do an SDEF import, RMS will assume that all, oh, that's from Paul. SDEF file, does it add to the RMS database or does it overwrite the database? Okay, so one question was, does the FDEF file add to or overwrite the database? The SDEF file will overwrite. So that's why it's very important for when you are looking at the SDEF file that you make sure you check that if there's anything that shows up as not, what does it say? Not activity, not in contract will add. Look and see if the title of that activity is the same as an activity that's already in RMS. If that's the case, then that means that the contractor, their scheduler has changed the contract ID, excuse me, the activity ID in their scheduling software. So that way, when it gets imported the next time, it's going to be different. So you want to make sure that you check that information. And if it's not right, I personally wouldn't accept it. I'd go back to the contractor and tell them, hey, you need to update this. Okay, so let me come back over here. All right, now what I'm going to do really fast is I'm just going to show you the very last slide, which has the links for all of the videos that I think you will find very informative. I wish there was a way that I could go all the way to the end without clicking through all of these slides, but far. All right, so let me see if I can redo this one. There we go. All right. So at the very end of our slide, we have some resource links for various different things. One of them is getting started with RMS. Another one is how to submit a support ticket. This will tell you how to go through and use Jira. So that one will be good for you. If you have any issues with your launcher not updating correctly, you try and get into RMS and it tells you disconnected, not connected to the proper resources. That's also showing up here, as well as at in one of the beginning slides. Now, a common problem with the progress payments is, well, not a common problem, but one problem that you may run into is maybe overpayment. Say you accidentally overpaid the contractor. We created a video to show you a couple of different ways in which to correct it. Again, when you go through that video, which way you choose is dependent upon your district's policy. Excuse me. This one is kind of similar to this one right here, except for it's going to show you all of the different places within RMS or outside of RMS that you can use in order to get to it. This one shows you how to add the prime contractor, both at the district level and at the contract level. So it's going to show you how to add the prime contractor to the district and then how to add the prime contractor to the contract and adding staff and things like that. Another one that most people might find useful is how CFOM's accruals affects progress payments. And then another one is troubleshooting contractor payrolls. Sometimes contractors will have issues with generating their payrolls. This YouTube video will actually help them go through and find out, and yourself find out what it is that they need to go through and check to make sure everything is up and running. I think there was one more that I wanted to add to this as well. And if we add any updates, we'll make sure that this gets posted to SharePoint as well. All right, questions? Carrie, is there anything else you would like me to go over?
No, I think you did a great job, Jennifer. And I think, one thing that I'll mention is, well, a couple of things I'll mention here. One thing that you noticed when Jen was trying to share her screen, that was that RMS was going really, really slow. A lot of times when we have this problem. It's outside of our control. We do work with CEIT to try to get it resolved, but please be patient with us. It's most of the time it's not something that we can do other than to track it and to try to get it resolved and try to escalate the issues, etc. But you'll notice too when we push out a new patch and lots of folks get online at the same time to try to download, RMS tends to crash. We're working with CEIT on trying to get a resolution to that to try to get it to stop happening. There's lots of things going on in that realm to try to fix the stability. The other thing I'll mention is we did get rid of fast reports. So now if you do use custom reports, you'll use the new reporting engine, which is Telerik. We did turn off RMS 2.38 and QCS, so that is no longer available. And just if you run into issues in RMS, please make sure you submit a help desk ticket because it helps us track the issue. And then of course, if we see the issue reoccurring over and over again, then that lets us know that there's probably a bigger problem than just, if it's only affecting like one person. So with that said, I just thank you all for your time. And again, check the RMS website as well as the SharePoint RMS PMO, that's us here in Huntsville, our SharePoint site for information on upcoming trainings. This training will also be recorded or was recorded and will be posted to the website, RMS website. And then of course the slide deck, we're going to try to get the slide deck uploaded so that y'all can have that as well. So if y'all have any other questions on things that we didn't cover, please let us know. You're always welcome to send an email to the RMS PMO inbox. That link is also on the SharePoint site. But if you have anything that you need help with, please just let us know. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, have a good day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.